Um, here we go. Hello and welcome, everybody. If you've not met me before, I'm Laura Kerry, and I'm a co-founder of the E17 Art Trail 10 years ago now. No, 20 years ago. And In the meeting this evening, we have Morag Maguire, who is the other half of Artillery. And we run the organisation and we work with freelancers to build projects, including the E17 Art Trail. So that's who we are. And This evening, we're going to talk you through all the steps of getting registered and taking part in the art trail and all the things you might want to consider. Tony Blackmore is working with us this year, who has been involved in many art trails now in various ways.
Hi.
Hello, Tony.
Hi.
um, so he's put together tonight's presentation for you, and he's invited along Sharon Drew and
Yeah, hi.
hello, Sharon. Farah Ishak and Poppy Flint. And we're going to hear about their different experiences and the things that they did, the different types of venues they've used, and how they create the welcome. So we'll get cracking. Um, if you think of any questions at all throughout the session, please do put them in the chat, and Morag will field the questions for us. And we will be sharing the slides and the recording in case you think you need to look back at it later. So I'm going to share the screen now, Tony, with your excellent
Okay.
slides. Let's just find those. Here we go. Okay, if anybody is listening in and they haven't muted themselves, that'd be really helpful for the recording. Thank you very much. I'm going to mute myself and hand over to Tony Blackmore, who's our artist support and art trail coordinator this year.
Thanks, Laura. And I'll be prompting you to move to the next slide. Yeah, great. I'll start that right now. Next slide, Laura. Great. Hi, everyone. Um, so yes, what we'll cover during this session is really how to take part in the festival. Part one will cover what and when the art trail is and what to show and how to do it. We'll be covering the pitfalls, providing tips on attracting audiences, and walking through the process of getting involved. Part two will cover all aspects of venues, really, setting up and managing your open house or studio or an external venue, considering the options when finding a venue, and meeting with your venue. And part three, Laura will cover, and that's to do with aspects of registration, your listing details, how to submit them, and a little bit about the Bloomberg app. Okay, next slide, Laura. So if you don't know already, yeah, where have you been? Um, the E17 Arts Trail is an arts festival that includes everybody, artists, makers, and performers of all ages, abilities, and experience. It's running from the 1st to 16th of June. You don't have, it's important to note you don't have to be a resident of the area to take part, but you need to make a link to the area if you do. So if you're not a resident, don't feel excluded as an opportunity to build new connections within Walthamstow to make your event happen. And if you're having an open studio or open house, you can also invite guest artists to show their work. And Sharon will be telling us a little bit about that later, about the positives of doing that. But throughout the trail, you decide the opening times within the dates that suit you or your venue. Okay, next slide, Laura. One back. Can you do that? So there's value. So only a little bit about the theme value, because you might have heard this before already. We kind of choose a theme to inspire or refresh the conversation. The theme this year is value. Um, if you are choosing to do the work to create work around the theme of value, it would be good to receive your images just to know what you're up to, and we may use those images with your permission. Um, so yes, let us know. And maybe let us know in the chat right now if you are. That would be great. Okay, next slide, Laura. So it's funny, it sounds obvious, but you need to decide what to do. And I know there's a few people who don't know what they're doing already. Um, so I guess now is around the time you need to make up your mind. Um, so yes, decide if you're actually making art in the round, if you're going to be exhibiting it, or if it's performance, or if it's a workshop. And actually, if you're not quite sure what to do, it's the art trail is an opportunity to curate a show or a mini trail. Um, that's what I decided to do for my second art trail, and it was a really worthwhile experience. And it means you get to know different artists, and also shares responsibilities, and it kind of makes the art more interesting. Um, or you could do a live or pre-recorded event or an online gallery or workshop. And if you're doing something which isn't listed above, if you're doing something completely different, we'd like to hear from you to hear, to see what that is. But the main thing is the art trail gives you the opportunity to be adventurous. Okay, next slide, Laura. So when it comes to an open house or studio, we've listed lots of things in the artist handbook or the E17 handbook. Um, these are kind of just a few of them, and we'll be talking about this with Sharon. But if you are opening your house or studio, you need to consider what you need to do to prepare. So that's not just making the artwork, but also, I know it sounds obvious, but where it's going to hang. If it's in your home, laying out your house so people can move around. Um, and what are your opening times? Do you want to team up with other people in your area and make contact with them? Um, I know that I did that for my first art trail, and I did that by basically looking in the hard copy guide from the art trail before to see who was on the map. And then I made contact with them. And when you do that, you can kind of like open at the same time. Um, and then when someone comes to your house, you can maybe chivvy them onto the next person in the area. Um, and yes, lastly, how do you manage your space? So do you get friends to help you, or a flatmate to help you? Who answers the door? Who gives out refreshments? Because sometimes you find yourself so busy you can't actually do all of those at once. So yes, we'll be asking a few of these questions to Sharon, who's our first guest speaker. Hello, Sharon. Are
Hi,
you
Toby.
there?
I'm here. I'm here.
Okay. Hi,
Thank you.
Sharon. Um,
Hi. Thanks for
yeah,
that.
that's all right. So, what kind of made you choose to open your house and your garden? And yeah, what kinds of things did you do to prepare?
Um, I suppose, well, first of all, it is the studio rather than the house. We're actually
Oh yes, sorry, yeah.
lucky. So we're lucky that our studio, and that's myself and my partner Mark, the studio is at the bottom of the garden. So it does make it easier in that there is a side access and people can approach the studio from the side of the house and then down the garden to the studio. So we're not generally dealing with people coming into the house, but then of course they might need to use the facilities, so it can happen. But we don't normally, the house during the art trail,
Hmm.
the house is locked, but everyone's either in the garden or in the studios. Yes. And the reason I wanted to do it was that it meant we could just decide for ourselves what we showed, and I like that element of control really over it. There was no negotiation with an external venue or anything like that. So I found that very, well, it's empowering basically that you can decide for yourself what you're going to put in there.
Okay. And what do you put in there? How selective are you?
That's one of the big things actually, is that I do edit quite severely. I mean, in fact, in terms of preparation, I just clear the whole studio, and it's not a huge space. It's about 3 meters by 5. I mean, it's a nice size, but it's not enormous. And I clear all the paintings out, and all the surfaces. And then I sort of take everything out of the house, out of the studio up to the house, and then I really decide what's coming back and limit it quite severely. Um, because, and I don't really show the studio in its regular state, to be honest. I paint the walls generally. I want it more of a showing space, and I want to be able to give focus to individual works. But then I do, you've got these sketchbooks up here. So I do on the worktops, I have sketchbooks and a portfolio case, and also, yeah, postcards. That's something I'll come on to in a bit, but I do try to promote the open studio quite well as well. Um, so um, maybe if you can go back to the previous slide, Laura, if that's okay. Yeah, just because that shows the space a bit more. So on the left-hand side, there's a visitor, I mean, looking at the work on the wall, but I've also got work on paper in a portfolio on the table there. Yeah, and then on the other side, I've got sketchbooks. I've also, over the years, made catalogues of my work. You can do that online. I use Blurb, but it's a really good way of putting a body of work together. It's almost like a little portfolio in itself. So I have all these things around that people can look at. So people tend to hang around for quite a while. And because I'm an abstract painter, and not everyone connects with abstract painting, and by having the sketchbooks, which they're out in the landscape based from observation. I find that people I find that there's people that come that only look at the sketchbooks and don't really get involved with the artwork, the paintings, that is. So it's quite nice to have a bit of variety. That's really what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and it is a really good way of showing your working processes.
Yes,
And I
yeah.
know that people actually quite like to touch things as well. It's like when you go into a museum, you look around, and then you go to the shop and you can touch things. I know it's actually when I've been to your studio in the past, it's actually really nice, the whole experience of flicking through your sketchbooks.
Oh, brilliant.
Um,
Thank you.
that's all right. Um, no, that's good hearing about the artwork and how you create the overall picture. Um, when it comes to marketing, so I know we've got the that artillery, we promote the art trail, but it's important for individuals to do their own promotion. So what kind of thing have you done in the past?
Yes. Well, um, if perhaps we go to the other slide with the postcards, because that just shows that you can get these done online pretty cheaply, really. And I mean, those images or those cards were from a few years ago now, but I was also running workshops. So I think one thing is to try and tie up any events that you're doing as well. Say, for instance, I
Yeah.
was running some art workshops, to link that up with the art trail. So I think I was running in the workshops beforehand, and then I'd got postcards for the art trail, and I was handing those out to the people doing the workshops. So they pretty much all came to the open studio. But then it worked the other way around, that at the open studio, I had the workshop postcards so that I could promote it. You can sort of promote things backwards and forwards like that.
Yeah.
And I would really recommend thinking about this now for June, because if you are doing any events, I might be giving a talk or two, that sort of thing. So I want to have some promotional material like that that I can hand out to people coming to that, um, to try and encourage them to come to the art trail. So I think there's all that sort of thing. Then there's obviously online listings. There's local online listings that are free and you can add to. So this is, of course, is all on top of what the art trail do, which is pretty phenomenal anyway. But I would really encourage people to do their own promotion and not just rely on the art trail promotion, because with that you've got a lot of artists. You're competing with a lot of other people.
Yeah.
So I think you need to stand out a little bit and develop your own following, really.
Also, it's really easy. You get so involved with making the work that you actually forget about promoting it. Say, if the
Yes,
art held in June, you're in the thick of it in April and May, so
yeah,
you tend to forget about it, and then you think, well, maybe I'm just talking about myself now. You think an Instagram the week before might be enough. And then you're wondering why no one turns up. Luckily, I've
yes,
never wondered that. Um, but yeah, that's quite an easy trap to fall into. And I know that you have a MailChimp. You do it by email, and I think
yes, yeah.
email is quite good, isn't it? You can do it 3 months before, or and a month before, and then a few days before as a reminder.
Yeah,
Um,
I think those well, MailChimp is what I use, and I mean, I have to say I've built up the mailing list through the art trail. So the visitor signing sheets that the art trail produce to get comments, and if I would definitely encourage people to use those and encourage your visitors to sign them, because if they're prepared to leave their email, then you can add that to your mailing list. Obviously, you've got to tell them what you're doing. And then if they agree to that, then I've built up I would say quite a significant mailing list over the years of doing the art trail. And then that's just really useful for any other exhibitions I've got or running workshops, any other events, throughout the year. And then, I build that up over the year, and then I'm inviting all those people to the art trail again. So I think I would really emphasize that publicity is really important, and to try and think of every avenue like that, really.
Okay, thanks. Just lastly, like you said, you have a garden and a
Mm,
garden studio, and you you also have Mark who shows his work as well. But you do
yes,
actually have quite a big space. Yeah, Laura,
yes,
I think it's in the third slide of the garden. So you've actually got quite a big space to manage.
yeah.
And how do you manage that space? Do you draft in a friend or?
Yes, I mean, this is the sort of, the logistics can get a bit complicated, but in this situation, on that left-hand side, we had two different sculptors who were showing in the garden as well. So we invited them to show. So then they can help out with managing people coming through, because, we might say have two or three people at one time, but we sometimes had 30 odd people because, well, not least because Morag sometimes brings over the hiking group or the cycling group or whatever. And suddenly, there's a huge number of people in there. But luckily, we've got the space to accommodate. Assuming it's not pouring down with rain, then there's plenty of space for everyone to move around. Um, so yeah, I think on every level it's good to invite other people, because they obviously have their own contacts. They bring new people in that you wouldn't have otherwise. It gives them an opportunity to show in a different venue, different space, and yeah, you can all help out with. Well, as you can see, we've got a table there with refreshments and things, and it is the problem that you could end up making tea and coffee and not actually be talking to people about your work or even selling your work. So yeah, definitely it's good to have an extra person, and I'm trying to remind myself that, because really we should do that this year, try and get someone else to really help with that side of things. um, and also, as you said before, with neighbours, coordinating with any other artists in the area to try and have the same days and times, because you know that's a huge benefit, because people get really, it is irritating if one venue's open and another one's closed
Yeah.
when they're across the road.
Yeah.
So it is really important, I think, to try and do that. um, and the other thing is, actually, we tend to open the second and third weekend for both days, and I would really encourage maybe opening 2 weekends, because it gives chance for people to talk about it and word of mouth to get around. And we definitely get people in the last weekend that have been told about it by somebody, in the first weekend. Um, as there's 3 weekends, leave a weekend for yourself to go around and see other people. So it's always a, balancing act, really.
Oh, okay. Sharon, that's been great. We've got to move on now,
Yeah,
but
I'm
thanks
sure.
very much. And if anyone's got any, Sharon has to go quite soon, but if anyone's got questions for Sharon or for us, can you put them in the chat and we'll try and answer them at the end? That would be great. And that's about opening your house or your studio or your garden. Okay, thanks, Sharon.
All right then. All right, thanks. Bye.
Okay, next slide, Laura. Thank you very much. Um, so we've seen open house and studio. Um, this part is all about venues really, and why you might want to look at a venue rather opening your house. So sometimes you might see a venue and want to show there, or with regards to the artwork you're making, you might think it fits a particular situation. So the sort of considerations are, which you see up there. Consider what kind of venue suits the scale, design, form, and theme of your artwork best. Think about potential collaborations with other artists or showing in a group show. Um, and of course, there's lots of benefits of being in a group show. You can share the cost and the organisation and the hanging of the work. Um, and of course, I actually think people like to see group shows as well. They've got a bit more pulling power. And you may have a venue. We're going to be talking to Poppy soon about the church she did an installation for. Um, I know that Poppy told me it was a church at the end of her road. So it might be a bit like that. You may pass the same building every day and think it would be good to show in there. Um, if you do decide to be part of the group show, sort of organise yourselves quite quickly in terms of who's going to curate and who's going to be doing each part. And if you have arranged something with a venue already, please let us know in the chat. It would be quite good to know who's doing what at the moment. Um, thank you. Next slide, Laura. So now it's a very good time to introduce Poppy. Poppy did, I never actually saw it. It's just such a shame because we're going to be playing the video after we speak to Poppy. And she did an installation called Underfoot at the Lighthouse Methodist Church. Um, hey, Poppy, are you there?
Hi.
You are. Where are you on my screen? There you are. How are you?
I'm underground.
Are you
I'm
underground?
very well, thank you.
You're underground now. You look quite
No,
underground. Where are you?
I'm just in my workshop,
Okay.
um,
Um,
with a fake background on.
right, it's fake. Um, yeah, would you be able to tell us about Underfoot and what inspired you to install it at the church? Like, what was your motivation to do it?
Um, well, I guess two slightly separate things, but yeah, I'd been working on this piece that, I mean, it started off as a simple idea of wanting people to look at roots of trees in a different way, and it became a sort of an installation that was actually designed for one person at a time to go into this dark space. So we had to completely build the space within the venue. Um, we picked the church, I mean, partly on practicalities. I did pay something to hire the space, but it was very much like lower than a commercial rent. So I'd asked around quite a few different places. Um, and the fact it was at the end of the road and they were like very open and up for us being there sort of gave us the keys for the weekend, basically, made it a
If you
really
come back
useful
to us,
place. Yeah, so it wasn't a, I mean, it was a building that I'd seen and passed hundreds and hundreds of times and never been in. So I think that was also part of the intrigue. It's quite fun to sort of take note of these places that I mean, it's used as a church, and I think it has like, yeah, like film nights and different things on there, but it's not sort of somewhere that has a big public program. So
so
it's quite fun.
how did you approach them and what did they say?
I I think I just found a phone number online, um, which is sort of how I'd gone around quite a few of the places. And I just knew that there must be quite a big space inside, often like churches and religious centres do. Um, we were slightly limited when we could open, well, just be it not on Sunday morning. But we actually sort of timed it to open on the Sunday so people that had been to church that morning could come to the event before we'd kind of open to the public more, which is quite nice.
Yeah. So when you approach the church, so I'm quite interested in the process, and I think it'd be quite helpful for people to know. So when you approach the church, what's the kind of process? Because I know that churches have committees and things have to be approved by committees sometimes, and there's a bit of to and fro. Were you dealing with a committee or a single person?
Mostly a single person, and I think I was quite lucky in terms of timing because the church were looking to, yeah, I guess broaden their reach and what they were doing. They were, I think, running a crowdfunder at the time for some renovations. So it sort of almost, it was positive for them as well to be showing that they were being used by the local community in different ways, which I think, yeah, I think that was sort of a bonus for them in a way. But I sort of written up a proposal with a couple of images of the work and a kind of outline of what it was, why we were doing it, how big it was going to be. So like the practicalities as well, which I'd attached when I was sort of emailing it out. Because I did contact quite a few venues to
Okay.
start with, and this one, but yeah, before I'd started phoning or emailing, I'd got like a just 2-page document prepared so people could quickly see whether it would be suitable. And I guess, and we weren't really suitable for places that might let you exhibit for free because we did have to build this structure and like we're quite dominant. It would have been very dominating in a space that that maybe we're trying to be a cafe or something at the same time. That wouldn't have really worked.
Okay, so I guess many businesses are like a church in that they might not be too keen on you, I don't know, screwing screws into the wall or touching the fabric of their building. How did you negotiate that?
We'd create a completely freestanding structure. I mean, it was a kind of market gazebo 3 by 3 metal frame, so not a sort of complicated structure. But we then had that freestanding thing to build on, build from. So we brought everything in, and didn't touch the walls.
That's
Yeah.
very clever. I remember in the church where I showed it in my second art trail, there were all sorts of clever devices we employed for making, work fit in the spaces. Um, so, I mean, what advice would you give artists who are looking to show at a venue or have their eye on a particular venue? Is there any advice that you would give them as a maybe as but before and during? So
Oh, yeah. Good question. I think beforehand, partly just don't be timid about going and checking out different spaces. Get in touch with people. Um, I mean, the worst that can happen is they say no or you can't afford it. But actually, a lot of people are interested and would probably really enjoy being part of and in part of the Art Trail program, if they could be. Um, so yeah, just keep an eye on what spaces are there and go and chat to people when you can. Um, but I guess yeah, have the details ready. And I think I know because it was just as sort of COVID was ebbing a little bit, but artillery had already been putting out advice and sort of risk assessment stuff, I think, around COVID. So in conversation, I very quickly sort of said, we'll do a risk assessment, we'll make sure it's safe. So you kind of reassure people that what you're going to be doing in their space, you're actually like, you're being thoughtful about the whole process. I think it's pretty quite important, especially if they're not used to having something like that done in their space. And then during,
Well, I suppose, Poppy, just to touch on that, that's a really valid point about a risk assessment. If you mention a risk assessment and carry it through, it just makes you look, well, you are being professional. It makes you look professional. And I think it puts the venue holders, what's the word, puts their heart at rest. It makes them feel a bit calmer because they know that they're dealing with a professional. So that's a really good point.
yeah, and I guess it's something if you raise that you've got that, or if you've got insurance. So I got insurance through AN, which I think so arts news, artist news. Laura, I can see you nodding your head.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I've got the right name. They do it with their membership and artist insurance that does cover have it doing public workshops and having public installations. Because there was a I mean, it was a safe space, but there were also like roots of trees hanging down in the dark. So there was definitely potential risk in there as well. Um, and yeah, I think during, or because we met the people who manage the venue, just sort of telling them about what you're doing, inviting them in to come and have a look, like trying to make them part of it. I think it was actually a really nice part of it for us was sort of meeting different people who practically live on my street, but I hadn't chatted to before.
And yeah, I guess with you being in a church, did you were you aware of any newcomers? Or how do I put this? Were there people coming from the church who go to church? Did you attract them as well?
Yeah, definitely on the Sunday. And because it was this one person at a time experience, well, A, we were also sending people down the road to the other church that had a group show because we were having to do sort of like time slots in the end, which is great because it felt really busy, but actually we could only do one person every 15 minutes. Um, so yeah, we made sure like some of the people from the church that really wanted to see it could come and see it first on Sunday before we opened.
Okay, oh, that's nice. We're going to be watching your video in just a moment. Do you want to tell us why yeah, why you made that video and what's happened since the last art trail?
Oh yeah, so I got that video made, partly just as sort of a documentation, but also to sort of sell the project, in inverted commas. And since then, I got developing your creative practice, or often shortened to DYCP, Arts Council funding. Um, did I get that the same year? Yeah, I think I got that later that year. No, maybe in 2022. So I'm sort of thinking out loud. But so I had that funding for a good chunk of 2022 to 23 to work on like developing where the project could go. And then it sort of somehow became a whole venue at Glastonbury as a one-off thing. But now which is what one of the images is behind me, a venue called the Rhizosphere, which is actually a particular part of like plant roots in the soil. And we're now, yeah, we're looking to try and get a bigger Arts Council grant off the back of that work and some partnerships that have formed. So yeah, it's still sort of emerging.
No, that's great. I didn't know about Glastonbury either. That must have been amazing.
Yeah,
No,
it started
well,
as we're
yeah,
just going to put in a bit of the installation and somehow became a kind of midday to 5 a.m. venue. It's a bit
yeah.
of a
No, that's quite an outcome. Poppy, I don't know if there's anything more to ask you right now. We've got the chat open, and I know you're able to hang on. So if anyone's got any questions for Poppy, do send them through. But for the moment, Poppy, we're gonna watch your video. It's always nice to see some art anyway. But thanks very much. Thanks for talking. Thank you.
We understand what plants look like above ground, but rarely consider what's happening beneath the surface. So we take people on a journey to explore the life of plants from a different perspective. Woven through the soil, entwined with all the kingdoms of life. Roots are the slowly beating heart of the tree. Their form is not predetermined, but shaped by environment and time. No top, no end, no straight line. The progress of the forest can be imperceptible, but only when seen from an anthropocentric human point of view. Participants enter a space where they are immersed in light and sound in a unique sensory experience. The threads of light that people follow are our interpretation of the mycorrhizal network. Using tracking technology, we are able to watch people's movements, see how they react to different elements of the story. Since the journey is affected by their own physical movements, no two people will have the same experience. What shape would your limbs take entwined? To pursue what route or web or line?
We're interested in creating an atmosphere of unease. We hope to get participants appreciating something that's normally out of sight, but also to think about the relationship between these disconnected forms themselves and the natural environment. So far, just one thread has been woven into this half-real, half-abstract underground world. But there are many other stories we'd like to tell, from revealing current scientific discoveries about the world beneath our feet, to evocative celebrations of nature, or to push people to consider the fragile state of nature as commodity. It's time to find your way out. Thank you and farewell.
Wow, that was great watching that. Thanks, Poppy. That's really good. Um, Great. Okay, Laura, I think it's time for the next slide. And that's first steps. Great, thanks, Laura. So if you're wanting to show at a venue, which isn't your home or your art studio, the first step is to look at our online collaborations board. It's the first time we've had this board, and it's run by Padlet. And basically, you can really easily post a short post, and in that post, detail what it is you're detail, but do it concisely. What it is you're looking. Oh, brilliant! There it is. Oh, have you got our Padlet for now, Laura? Oh, never mind. So yes, post your post. Oh, there it is. We got some here. Now these are photos of the event that we ran in December. But basically, you can type what it is you're looking for or seeking, or what it is you're offering, and it's kind of like just it's a matchmaking service between different artists and venues. And the idea is you match up with someone, and then when you've matched, you then remove your note, and it really is that easy. And we haven't had it before, and already it seems to be working because we've got venues posting, and we have artists posting. Um, so yeah, that's the first bit if you're wanting to share at a venue. And like what Poppy was saying, she saw a church at the end of the road, and she approached them as well as many other venues. So all you have to do is, if you see a venue, even if it's a barber shop or a lawyer's or an estate agent, maybe just go in and see them, or email them first and go in and see them. Um, there's many different ways of doing it, but the main thing is don't be shy. So if you do manage to meet up with a person who runs a business or a venue, it's always good to have images at the ready of the type of artwork you'd like to show or make. have the venue information handbook at the ready. That's something new, and it's more geared towards venues and what they should expect from the art trail if they really don't know much about it. Of course, you don't have to have one printed off. You can send a link to them. You can share it to them on your phone. Um, as long as they have it on their phone, I guess. And then once you have their ear, try and build a relationship, and that should lead to the creation of a written proposal. Um, yeah. Next slide, Laura. So I'm not really going to write too much about the proposal because we've got a list in the artist handbook. We have an artist handbook and a venue handbook. And we detail this quite a lot, what your venue proposal should include. Um, the main thing is really outline your expectations and address their expectations. And if you write a plan, um, kind of, I know it sounds obvious, but sort of keep to it and keep to the times. So um, don't go in there at their busiest times, keep to the times arranged. We've already mentioned a risk assessment. That's always a good idea. When it comes to the artwork hanging on the walls or being present in their space, you have to think about whether it's for sale, and if it is sell, how do you sell it? Um, will it be with a card machine? Will the venue holder be taking cash? You just have to consider all these things. And also, will the venue holder be taking a commission? So all these things you have to think about beforehand, but they are in the artist handbook. So next slide, Laura. Oh, other hot tips. Well, it seems like we're all on the same page about AN. No one seems to know what AN stands for anymore. It used to be artist newsletter, but I think we all go to AN. But of course there are other insurers out there, so this isn't a given. So you might want to look yourself. Um, but I do know that we're having a how-to workshop further down the line, in particular about health and safety. So we'll be covering it in more detail nearer the time. Um, Yep, holding an event within event. So I'm thinking about whether you're giving a piece of performance art or a meet the artist event, which is always good to garner attention and to get in numbers. Just discuss how it might be beneficial to both of you because your the business holder may have a client list, you'll have your email list. It's really good to bring them both together. Um, that will introduce new people to the business, so they'll be very happy about that. And maybe that's something you can include in your written proposal because it kind of shows you're thinking about them as well, and that it's actually it's not all about you. Um, and if you're planning a workshop in a public space, you'll need to contact the council and complete the relevant form. Um, I do know when I applied for an exhibition at Wynn's Gallery late last year, and they sent me the wrong form for an event in the park. And I do know a section of that form, you have to tick all the boxes about how you're going to ensure the event. And I think it's a minimum of £5 million. And I do know for me, Artist News AN would have been the one. So yeah, those are just simple hot tips. And the next slide, Laura, we spoke to Sharon about marketing and the importance of using every means at your disposal to promote your own event. Um, so you can be guaranteed that people will come through your doors or through your gate or through the business doors. And of course, when it's on, so we're now talking about when it started, you need to have welcome signs because I think there's nothing worse going to a venue that you think is it's down in the trail and there's no welcome sign. There's no art trail sticker. It can actually put people off knocking on the door because it creates an air of uncertainty. Um, so have welcome signs, have arrow signs. I even had an arrow sign to my doorbell, and I think the advice there is you can't have too many signs. Um, so when you have people through the door, plan the various stages of who's going to manage what bit, even if it's putting the kettle on, pouring the tea, talking to guests. I'm on a first floor flat, so it meant my partner had to go downstairs and answer the door like every 15 minutes whilst I was staying my bit upstairs, and basically just create a nice welcome, which I'm sure you would do that anyway. I don't have to say it. I think that's it for that slide. Laura, next one. Haha. So we've had Sharon talk about an open studio. And then we have Poppy talking about working with a venue and in a venue. Farah's a bit different yet again. She has lots of different bows to her name. And Farah's talking tonight in the context that for her second art trail, she made public art for the railway bridge under St. James's Street station. Farah, are you there?
Hi.
There you are. Hello.
Before I talk about the second art trail, that mural one, can I just say, after
Yeah.
listening to the other lovely artists we've been listening to, you don't have to do something really big and humongous and oh my gosh, have a mailing list. I mean, no offense to Sharon, but most of my art trails have been, I'm still not really an artist. I don't consider myself an artist. I'm a wannabe artist. And I think art trail has a really lovely mixture of established, been going for 20 years people and people that just want to have a laugh one year and rewrap their house. So one year, one couple rewrapped their house in wrapping paper. And that was an installation. It was amazing. I've been to people's houses on art trail where they've had collections of matchboxes or some toys and just really beautifully arranged them and invited you in to see them. And it can be a small whim of creativity that you fancy doing something in your front garden, or I think the pandemic year that we did the art trail, people becoming really creative with how to use a driveway in their cul-de-sac, or June's quite a good time of the year. I mean, there's still risk of rain, but you can get a marquee. I think, didn't you do one in a marquee?
Yes.
Once in your garden. So just to say that it doesn't have to be some all singing, all dancing, have a party every day, every weekend. You can just do a one-off event, or if it's a performance, maybe you do poetry, maybe you want to hold a poetry evening. So yeah, just to say that it can, if it's your first time doing it. My first art trail was literally getting one of my prints from my kitchen and hoisting it into someone else's massive group show, because they said, oh, there's a bit of space on that table, for the next weekend or so, you can place one of your pieces on it. That was my first foray into an art trail. I'd only made one thing at that time. I was just grateful that someone wanted it in their house whilst people went into it. I didn't, and I felt really part of the art trail, and that's what made me inspired to do something the following year. And I've done things in different mediums every year because I just fancy doing something with plastic or recycled something, or so the next time I take part, I'm probably going to do a video installation because that's what I've got into lately. I'm going to try and do something with projection. So yeah, yeah, so it doesn't have to be so serious. I don't know.
No, that's no.
I think basically the art trail is what you want to get out of it. Make a decision roughly about what you want to get out of it, and then just whatever energy you put into it is what you'll get back. So if you invite 10,000 people, you'll get 1,000 people turn up. Or if you want to have a low key set of events, I think for some years there've been like people hosting quizzes but based on a theme, and they'll have some artworks. Maybe their neighbors will take part and bring things around, or you can do a workshop and then hang everyone's work collectively onto a washing line and make the art piece together somehow. It doesn't have to be a regimented big art show thing, because you might not have enough work for an art show. I never did.
What led you to So you did your first art trail, and what led you? Because it was quite a big project for your second art trail.
Yeah, so I was just
What
a
led to that?
I was just a middle-aged single mum, and I was a bit bored. And the art trail was one of those things that I felt like I could kind of reach into. And I think, hopefully, I think it's still like that. I still, lots of people I speak to, it's just, it can be. So that wall under the bridge had been empty. It used to have a cash point there years ago, many years ago. There's a cash point on one of the on the one on the right hand side. They removed the cash point years ago, and it was just this hole, concrete hole, dirty concrete hole with pigeon poo. And I walked past it about 5 times a day and got really fed up with it. And when the art trail came around, I was thinking, well, wouldn't it be nice to put something there? And I don't know, like I think Poppy said earlier, the worst anyone can say is no. So if that wall wasn't available to be used, if they'd said no at some point, then it wouldn't have been used. But I went into the station to find out, if the building belonged to the station or to the train company. Sent a couple of emails off to various customer services. Eventually got put through to the local train area type people, and it turns out they had a very small section to do with, I think, gardening or something. I can't remember now. Some small thing to do with community outreach or something. So they got involved with Art Trail. It was lucky for me. And then for my promotion, I made little Oyster card holders because I thought, what else could you have for a train station? So it was quite a big undertaking, but in the end it didn't take very long because I'd already made some artwork at that point, and I was just trying to work out how I could best use the space with what I'd already made. And in terms of funding it, I got some local funding because it was for a public space in the local St James Street area. I got a very small residence panel because I lived right next door to it, so it was a very local endeavour for me. But yeah, so basic, I don't know, I don't know how many walls are left in Walthamstow to be taken over, but there must be spaces. And also, I think school railings, if you have children, maybe ask your school if they want to be involved. There's a lot, maybe you host, maybe you take part in other after school groups and things. There's lots of walls and fences that could temporarily be taken over, especially when it's temporary. And that's why my works are on aluminium specifically, so that they can just be taken down. So when you're proposing that to somebody, it's just a couple of screws rather than it's going to be a whole repaint job if you're a painter, for example, unless they really want a mural there forever.
Okay, well, what's the like time frame from the time you saw the hole in the wall to asking the station to getting permission to actually installing the work? How long did that take?
So about 3 months, I think.
Okay.
It was good to have the deadline of the art trail because with all big corporations like train companies, there's quite a lot of not red tape, but getting to the right person.
Yeah.
And then waiting for answers and permissions to come back from various departments. So, but having the art trail deadline was kind of good because that sped things up in the end, because it was either you say yes now or it's just not going to happen at all for another year. So that was quite helpful. And also what else was going to happen in that space. So they were onto a winner as well.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's mutually beneficial. Like this other mural, which was I think another art trail a couple of years later. That's a bit of that was a very, very peeling painted wall that had been like that for about 20 years just off the high street. So that the guy who owns that wall, he got a bargain by getting someone else to sort it out and put some artwork on it.
Like some people find it difficult. I know I do. They just don't know where to begin finding who that wall belongs to.
So that was just knocking on doors. I asked in the shop next door, and then I asked in the shop next door to that, and then I think I looked on Google, tracked it down. It's a landlord who owns that entire block. That one turned out to be. But if you find a space and you can't find the details, you can give it up within good reason. Obviously check a map, check if it's a shop or above a shop, there'll be some kind of listing for it somewhere on the web. And if it becomes too difficult, it's obviously not meant to be, I'd say.
Yeah, right. Yes. Yeah. So is there
I mean, to be fair, my space under that bridge, you know, that mural is so old now, and I lesson learnt, didn't sort out any maintenance kind of arrangements for that one. Never thought about it at that time because I wasn't an artist. You're supposed to, if anyone does do this in the future, when you get something installed in public, arrange who's going to look after it infinity, because you might not always live next door to it, like I did, and I assumed I'd live next door to it forever and ever, but life didn't work out like that. So now it's a mess, and I have to go back every few months. And to be honest, someone else could probably make a really nice thing under there. It's probably time to give it over. So there we go. Art Trail 2024. Anyone?
No, we can't do that.
We can. I think it might be time.
Okay.
It could be time. Someone else could have the space under the bridge and give it a revamp. I can give you all the contact details necessary, and it's already been done. Precedent's been given. So I'm sure they would be up for it. And other shows I've done for Art Trail. Can I just say quickly about some other ones? So
You can, yeah.
Group shows. If you're not that confident or feeling a bit reticent, or you're trying something brand new out. I think one year I tried printing on perspex, and group shows in churches are great, and also you get to meet lots of other lovely artists. That's how I've met people like you, Tony. I've met many artists just by being part of a group show and being forced to say hello to people. Like literally, you're standing in a church and you have to decide who's going to go where, and there's 20 of you. Like who's got the big sculpture, who's going to be hanging here, and who needs a corner for something dark. You have to speak to each other, which is really, and you get on, and then you have a massive party, and you all celebrate the work going up on the walls, and you have the hanging day all together. That's a really nice way to like just feel part of an artistic kind of community, even if it's just for a couple of weeks, and you go back to your day job. And so I've really loved being part. I think St Barnabas Church I did a few times. I think St Peter's now do similar things. Those big group shows are just lovely to be part of. If you're feeling a little bit unsure, or don't really fancy people coming in your house or in your front garden, or you haven't got a front garden, I recommend looking out for those things. That Padlet looks amazing, by the way. Can I just say that Padlet? I reckon, if that looks like it's gonna be a really helpful thing for this year's Art Trail, matching people up. So you might have a house or a bigger space or a driveway and don't want to do something by yourself, so maybe it would be nice to find 2 people in your local postcode who could come and share the load with. Definitely try and split things up and work out how much time you've actually got, because it's all very well going, oh, I'm going to do this amazing thing, but if you haven't actually got the time, because you have got to go to work or pick your kids up, be realistic, otherwise you just get knackered. But then being knackered is part of the fun too. No, that's enough.
No, be realistic is very good advice. Thanks. No, that's good. No, you've given us like loads of advice, and I'm wondering what I've actually missed out asking you. I don't know if I have. Is there anything?
I think don't get too hung up over it. Don't get worried that people are going to come around and judge you. I'd say a lot of artists I've spoken to over the years, when you first show something, you just feel like, oh my God, everyone's just going to come around and judge you. They're not teachers. They're not coming to mark you. And I think once you realize that you're not being marked for presenting something, people are just generally curious. People on the art trail or coming to visit things, they're just really curious and just are fascinated by whatever you show. So it doesn't matter if it's what you thought was going to be perfect and it didn't come out quite the way you thought it would. People are just generally happy to see the process or the mess behind the scenes. Or I love a messy studio. The messy studios were the best studios, because you could see the kind of, I don't know, the love that went into whatever they were making. Lots of spilt things everywhere. Oh, the artists that haven't got it together at all till opening time and everything's still wet. Best.
Great. Thanks. Are you able to stay on for a little while, Barrett? Okay. So if you have any questions, you can put them in the chat, and we can come back to them. We're actually running remarkably to time, which is great. So we're actually going to be talking about registration now and the process and how it will appear in the Bloomberg app. Well, we don't know too much about that, but we'll talk about the listings. So thank you to our 3 guest speakers. They've been brilliant. And I'd like to hand over to Laura now.
Hi, Tony. It was so brilliant to hear from all of you and bring it to life again, because obviously it's been a little while since the last art trail, so really appreciate it. And I hugely appreciate Farah just reminding us that the thing about the art trail is this incredible spirit of generosity and everyone willing each other to succeed, whatever stage you're at, whatever time you have to cobble something together or do something very polished, and everything in between. So yeah, hugely appreciate you reminding us of that, Farah, because it's a journey. And you know, and these kind of small actions of local activism that, you know, happen in our area to make it really special, that, you know, once you have a kernel of an idea, it grows year on year. So yeah, it's brilliant. So it has run beautifully on time. If anyone is getting very wriggly, what I'm going to do is talk about how you register, get signed up, and send us all your event details. So if you're getting a little bit bleary-eyed, I'm going to try and be concise and then see what questions you have for me, or anyone else at the end. And yeah, it's just quite nice to hear from you as well. So so here we go. I will share the screen. And sorry about my camera work tonight. The cat kept jumping on the keys and closing the presentation, which wasn't very slick. So sorry about that. So yeah, so the sort of simplest way to explain how we do this side of things is that this is a kind of crowdfunding, essentially. And so all of your registration fees help us pay for the overheads, some of the publicity, some of the freelancers we work with to help bring it all together, to double check all your listings 100 times and proofread them, make sure we've got them all right, as best we can. And it's quite a big undertaking. So also, we've got an early bird discount of £15 off at the moment. And the reason for that is that the sooner you sign up, the sooner I have an idea of how many of you might be taking part, and I know if we can afford to do extra bits. So I know if I can book a photographer or a filmmaker to document it, or, you know, in past years we've had amazing publicity on the underground and all up the escalators. So the sooner you book, the sooner we have the confidence to know how much publicity we can afford. So so you can go onto our website from now. I built us a new website over Christmas that hopefully is quite a slick way of gathering all the information, but if it's a bit clunky or anything, let me know and I'll try and iron this process out. So the first thing to do is work out who is submitting all the details for your exhibition or event, or it could be a combination of exhibitions and events. And then once you've decided that, you go to our website and register. And I'm actually just going to go and share with my web page. Actually, it's the best place. So when you're on the website, there's loads of resources and things that Tony's been working hard to update for you. And on the Take Part page, you've got your steps that we've taught you through this evening. A little bit of an explanation here. You've got your early bird voucher code to get your money off until the 14th of February. And then you can sign up. So here if you're an artist, say, you need to register your event or exhibition here. And once you've done that, you become a member of the website. You can access other resources like the Art Trail logo that you can use in your publicity, and there'll be things that we add to that. And if you perhaps sort of more affordable option, you can support the festival for a £25 donation. And for that, you can either have your name in the credits, or you can do a display out on the art trail, in your windows, on hedges, on railings, whatever, that is just kind of there 24 hours a day for people to enjoy. And we'll do a little mini listing for those. So it could be a whole street you could have one listing for, or all your friends or neighbors could do one each. Like you can just do it with what's affordable to you or matches your ambitions, or, you know, collaborate. pay £5 each and do a little one, you know, whatever. So we tried to make it as accessible as possible. So that's what that option there is. But it's not a very detailed listing. It's a spot that as people are going around, they can see there's something to see there. But your main event listing or exhibition listing is the one that has much more detail. It could link to your website. And this year you can include bits of audio. You could include film. You can, you know, include all your social media links. So it's quite exciting to have the app this year because we can have so many more kind of rich things for the audiences to explore. And then venues do not need to pay to take part, but sometimes venues get really involved and host multiple things. So if they want to register under their own steam and be a sponsor of the festival, they have a profile in the app, so it's really clear they're a key destination for the festival. They can share nice little bits about their business. Say they're a picture framer, they might want to give customers 25% off if you buy something on the trail and get it framed there. You know, just it's kind of good publicity for them, and really helps support everything that we do and bring audiences to them. But that's not obligatory. That's just us trying to make it all work. And once somebody has registered, you are then logged into the site and you can go to My Orders, and in there you can see that you've booked, registered with us. It'll load in a minute. I have ordered things. Maybe I deleted them. I've been testing it. So it will show you here what you've ordered, and you can book any additional listings. So some artists do multiple things in multiple venues, so that's what you can book, the extra bits here. And we tried to, again, keep it affordable, but every listing is quite a lot of time for us to check and upload and process, so that's why there's these fees attached. I hope it all makes sense. When you've signed up, you've registered, you've booked any additional listings you like, you have until the 1st of April to finalize this. So we will send you, it's not ready yet, but we will send you the form where you enter all your details. And I'm working with Bloomberg Connects. Bloomberg is a arts philanthropy organization. They're a huge financial organization, massive, international, and they support the arts, and they're giving us free access to their app. So we'll be hosted alongside huge major institutions all around the world, and then there's going to be the Art Trail in the list. It's quite sweet. And they're giving me one-to-one support to build this specially. So when I've checked with my contact there this month that I've got my form right to collect all your details, I will then share it, so don't worry. And you will have until the 1st of April to fill it out. Tony, I'm going slightly over, but I'm just going to show those slides. So that's what I've just been telling you about. This is where I just took you to that page on the website. And these are the bits of information we're going to be asking you for. So you can start thinking about them now. Think about the exhibition title. It could be really obscure and intriguing, or does what it says on the tin. It's entirely up to you, but people will make a selection based on titles and a thumbnail image. That is, you know, that is going to be the thing that grabs them first. Don't forget to include your artist or group name. It's surprising how many artists forget to put their own name in their own event listing. And that might be deliberate if you're, you know, if it's a curious thing and you want to be mysterious, but if you actually want people to know it's you, then definitely remember that. Obviously your address, your hours, a nice description of what people will find. Don't worry if you're not sure yet. A lot of you won't have made the work you're going to show. So my recommendation is that you talk about what you already do, because that's really rich. It's really thought through, perhaps. And so that will tell them if they're going to enjoy what they're coming to see. So don't panic if you haven't painted it, constructed it, conceived of it. That's absolutely fine. Think about what contact details you want to be in the public domain. So if you choose to share your phone number, just remember it is out there. But that actually is quite useful if someone wants to buy something. It's pretty good that they can get hold of you in some way. And then you think about your images really carefully. When you sign up on this, when you send all your details on the form, this will all be explained again. So it's a lot to take in one evening, but this year there will be a kind of landscape image that gets cropped to a square by the app. So just think about what it is that you're submitting. And sometimes people send an image of their venue or a logo, and I can see why sometimes, but they're not the most engaging thing. Whereas, Yaret's beautiful collaged ceramics here, that's really giving you an idea of what you're going to find. And new this year, because we're using the Bloomberg app, you absolutely must have permission to use your image, and you must give us a credit. So what it's of and who has the copyright of the image, which is usually the photographer, unless they've given the license to you. And so, any questions? Hopefully I didn't waffle too much. And yeah, in case anyone needs to go right now, just thank you so much for coming along. It's so good to see you all. And thanks very much to Tony, Farah, Sharon and Poppy for bringing it all to life for us. I'm going to check the chat. Morag, have you spotted anything?
I have. Thank you, everyone. There were so many brilliant tips from our guest speakers that it was really refreshing to be reminded about these preoccupations. I'm not going to necessarily do the questions in order. And because we've just been talking about registrations, there's a question that popped up in the chat that I've half answered, but I thought you might like to add some detail to. So I'm sorry if I didn't. So Terry Ann asked, if I'm doing two different events, do I need to pay for two different listings? And I know that you've been thinking really carefully about what those two different events might be and how they're going to be demonstrated in the app.
So what I would recommend is think about how much profile you want, and your main listing will probably be for the venue itself. So you pay once for a main listing, and in that you can include lots of information. And like I said, like you can this year for the first time have film or audio, which might be great for Terry Ann, I imagine, as a singer-songwriter. And then underneath that you can nest other things. So perhaps you want one main exhibition listing in images and frames, and so you do that, and then on the Thursday you're doing a workshop. So you could, if you wanted to, have an extra little £25 listing nested underneath that for your workshop, and that would also appear in the calendar as a workshop, so audiences can find you things happening on particular days. We kind of split listings between the trail, things you go around and find your way around, exhibitions, open houses and things, and then things that go in the events calendar. So that's probably like a one-off book reading or poetry evening, or a tapestry workshop, or whatever it might be. And so, like I say, it really depends on what kind of budget you want to use on this, and whether things you want to make them really explicit and visible, or you want to kind of collaborate and do something that fits your budget better, or so it's really up to you. Hope that makes sense.
That's really helpful. I'm going to follow up because you mentioned something about the rich things that you can share in the app. Would you be able to expand a bit on that, Laura?
Yes, so I'd hope to be able to share the app with you through Zoom, but it wouldn't let me do that on my mobile. So, but I will. I started making screenshots, and I will try and add those to the website so you can actually see what it's going to look like. But feel free to download the Bloomberg Connects app from wherever you get your apps from, depending on your phone. And have a look at other people's apps, and in there you'll get a sense of what it looks like and what kind of things people put on. Some of them are to explore museum collections, so permanent collections perhaps, so it's a bit different to how we're using it. But they really recommend using audio, and I thought such a wonderful opportunity that perhaps you're not present in your exhibition. And if you maybe have a little bit of performer in you or a storyteller in you, you could record a little tour of your exhibition. So even if it's not in your house, perhaps it's in the library, you can't be there all the time, people could have a little personal artist tour even if you're not there. So that's quite exciting. It may be that you are a sound artist or a filmmaker or something like that, and so you can actually include those kinds of artworks as well. And if you wanted to do an online only exhibition on the app, I think that is really exciting too. So you may have digital artworks and things which it can support perhaps better than we could through the previous way of working.
I do think it's a really exciting thing, and we're going to do a lot of learning, all of us together, about how it becomes useful. I remember one of the people we met from Bloomberg was explaining that it also translates really easily for people for whom English isn't their first language, and they may prefer to read things in another language. So it's quite exciting on many levels. I have a good practical question from Melina. Should you wait to register if you are still in the process of finding and confirming a venue?
That's a good question. I think if you're pretty sure you're going to find a venue, then I would definitely register soon and benefit from the early bird discount. If you're a little bit uncertain, then you might want to hold off. We'll be able to do you a refund until the 1st of April, should it all go a bit pear-shaped. But after that, we will have committed the budget to something. So we'll consider your payment a donation, and we'll credit you as a sponsor if that helps satisfy that sort of side of it. Just trying to think, because I think that's answered that, hasn't it?
So,
That's
Laura,
Yeah.
so am I right in thinking that you can register for the early bird? That's just registering your details, and then
Yeah.
Have until the 1st of April
Yeah.
to submit the rest of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So overall you'd have until the 1st of April to confirm your venue.
Yes, that's the 1st of April is to submit all those finalised details, your opening hours, your title, who's taking part, your image. But yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine the 14th of February, which is when the early bird finishes. I imagine that might be quite tight for some people.
Yes.
The 1st of April is quite feasible.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just the reason for having this sort of staggered approach, as I say, it's really helpful for us to know just how big it might be, how many people are involved. Like if I need to proofread 100 event listings, and then on the 1st of April, another 200 of you book, I haven't got enough proofreaders to turn it around in a week. whew, it's going to be scary. So it just helps us get a handle on what you are all thinking of doing, because we don't know. We hear these little nuggets or the ideas, or in these sessions we get a hint of what you might do, but what actually comes in on the 1st of April, we just don't know. And it's always incredible reading through them. But you know, you are really helping us out by booking a bit early.
That's so true. It really is. It can be such a surprise on the final day of the registration to see what people have been planning. John wrote, I hope to show from my home window. Will people be able to get details in the brochure?
Yes. So I saw, John, you've already signed up actually. So yes, so that's for something in the window. It's a simple listing. You just say, you know, what it is, and you can share an image, and people will see you on the map.
And do you want to say a little bit about how we don't have a brochure this year, that we have an app and
Yeah, so
something else?
unfortunately, we're just not able to secure the kind of funding that's really required for a festival this scale. And it always frustrates me that I can't do it the justice that I think it deserves. But the cost of living crisis, the prices have all gone up massively, and the funding has not. It's not going up at all, so, let alone in line with. The beautiful brochures that we have produced for years are now £9,000 just to print. They come on 9 pallets. That's a lot of storage. That's a massive amount of distribution. My back will tell you just how many brochures that is. It's very creaky. And so we've decided to use the app with a printed fold-out map in conjunction. So it won't have all of the details that the brochure did in the printed map, but it will show you what's where and relate to the app. So like venue 1 on the map, you can look that up in the app. You hit look up number 1, and it will take you straight to last Art Trail Switchboard Studios. And then underneath the Switchboard Studios listing, you could find the different artists and workshops all nested underneath really neatly. And I've just been sort of trying to recreate that in the app, which I will share so you can visualize it at some point soon.
It's a real. I think that potentially this is something that's a much more flexible tool for people navigating the art trail and feeling like they can dip in and not have to rely on 3 lines of text to work out where they want to make their first start for each journey. It's quite exciting. I
Obviously,
think
it will feel, you know, some people may be disappointed not to have that brochure to flick through in the same way, and I do appreciate that, but it's just not, it's beyond viable now. But it is just one app. You haven't got to download the Art Trail app. Once you download the Bloomberg app, I promise you, there's like hundreds of worlds of art on there to have a little noodle around in. So once you have the Bloomberg app, when you go to the British Museum next, it's full of fantastic information about the collection. Or you go to there are more and more arts organizations with one-off events using it as well now, because it's such a great tool. It's a really solid bit of tech. So I know it's boring technology sometimes, but I do think this has been made so it's really accessible. If you need to, you can use it in conjunction with screen readers. So, you know, you can change the type, the size. You can, as Morag said, translate it into many languages. So hopefully that will satisfy some people better. Got some more questions, yeah.
I'm going to jump around a bit in the order of the questions. So I hope I'm pronouncing this right. Goshia is asking, could you tell us more about the digital pieces that could be available on the app only? How would that work?
Oh yeah, so hello, nice to meet you. I don't recognise your name, perhaps we've met sometime. In the past, we just had like a web link in the trail guide for some digital art pieces, and then people would look them up. But with the app, we can live link directly to it or show it in your page on the app, depending on what kind of digital art it is. But if you have something particular in mind, just email me and I will have a look and we'll figure it out together. Especially I'm going to meet Bloomberg next week, so it might be fun to have some examples like that to take with me and problem solve.
Yeah, that'd be brilliant. So I have a couple of questions from Eleni, who is asking about public liability insurance. So the first question is if Eleni or anyone is showing in a group show, in, for instance, a church, does each artist require public liability insurance? And to follow that on, do I need public liability insurance if I run a workshop in the church?
Oh, so Laura, yeah, I can answer that one, having
Go for it.
done an exhibition in a church. Um, no, you don't each need to take out your own insurance. You can all club together and take out insurance under one person's name. Um, and that insurance would also cover a workshop or like a public event. So it's that simple, really. You can all club together and put it under one person's name. When I showed in the church, they had their own insurance, but they also, I don't know what they thought was going to happen, but they had their own insurance, but they also wanted us to take out our own. And there were three of us, and I think we paid, at the time, £50 divided by three people through AN publications. So I hope that answers that one.
Yes, Tony, I think in your instance, especially one of the artworks was actually hoisted up into
Yes.
the church above people's heads. So I'm actually protecting my head here thinking about it, but I remember watching you do that. But, but I think there are two bits. Yeah, there are two bits to this public liability. You know, some of these things sometimes do feel a little bit overwhelming or nerve-wracking when people say risk assessments. But if you just think about negotiating your way through a space and just look at it with fresh eyes. Have you left a cable trailing around? Have you left liquid lying around? Have you, thought about creating a wide enough space for people? Who's clearing it up? Are you going to be on your own late at night? Just, think through those processes. What are you securing this artwork well enough? It's not just your audiences, it's your own toes. You need those. So right, because often we are up against it, like Farah said earlier, the paint's still drying, right, when we put these things up quite often. But you do need to take care of yourself and your audiences and just think about it from that perspective rather than being very terrified about it. And we do have lots of resources to help you later on. So we've got some template risk assessments and things that we can update for this. So
also, I believe like a couple of days before our show, we are up in a cherry picker and on scaffolding. So your insurance has to cover the installation period and the takedown period, and not just the period of the actual exhibition.
Yeah. But many of you, the AN public liability insurance that comes with your memberships, it used to be about £38. I saw someone asked about a discount. We did get a discount in the past for art trailers. I'll see if we can do that. I will ask them. But
Farah was really good at negotiating that.
That was me. I can find the contacts and drop you a line. I think she lived in Walthamstow or something. I can't remember. Yeah, it's definitely worth it. I don't have it at the moment, but that's reminding me to get some. It's about, I think the discount was about £25 for the year. It included the membership to the Artist Network, but it also, the things you don't think about is not just it falling on someone's head, but it actually covers you for if you damage it on its way to go into a venue, if someone steals it, if someone else damages it, if your work, the frames get broken or whatever, apparently it's supposed to cover the whole life cycle of that piece of artwork. It's not just when it's hanging in the show, it's also when it's being transported and the rest of it. So actually, if you do make a substantial amount of work, or your materials are precious, or it's a really unique one-off piece that you don't want to damage, it's worth it, I think, for the duration of the festival. And then you can then use it again. You can, because the insurance is valid for the year. It might encourage you to then go and book another show or another cafe or another venue.
Yeah,
because you might as well. You've got the year's insurance. take it somewhere else. Take it on tour.
Yeah. It
I
is
think
a
that
year cover, but you do need to check what cover you have for your kind of work, because everyone's individual. Eleni asked specifically about workshops, and I would say that anybody delivering workshops should have public liability insurance. It's really important to cover everybody. That especially is, you know, if you're opening your house to public and you've got some prints on your own walls, I can see why you'd think I don't really need public liability insurance. But if you're installing something outside that people could trip over, definitely have it. If you're teaching people how to use materials that they might not have used before, they might not be as dexterous as you, and they might cut themselves, that you absolutely must have it for a workshop. Yeah.
Can I ask something, Laura? Sorry, can I add another question?
Yeah.
Can you hear me? We had an informal, like an art trail exhibition at St. Saviour's a few months ago. And what happened was that after we installed the work and it was all in place, we went home. The following day, when I went in the church, somebody had put a lot of work in front of my display. And I complained. It looked hideous. I tried to complain, but the organist was a friend of the guy, refused to do anything about it. And it was a very, very bad experience. Is there anything we can do to safeguard ourselves? Like if, let's say, you could kindly provide a form that we can get the people organizing the exhibitions to sign, that they're not going to do anything to affect our works once they're on display.
I think I can see where you're coming from, and group shows, there is that tension about showing work and not, you know, interfering with each other's. It is complicated. So
I never had a problem with them before. I have to say that they've been
oh,
very good
been
so
lucky.
far. You know, no, really, seriously, yeah.
Yeah. I think, you know, this is about having a really good plan and managing expectations, and being quite flexible to an extent, obviously. But yeah, I don't think we can ask people to sort of have a kind of contractual arrangement from our end, because we wouldn't know enough about each individual circumstances. But in the handbook, we've sort of, and as Tony showed this evening, we sort of just kind of like outline your approach and what you're doing and who's responsible for what. And I think that just helps clarify, so people can see what's happening and why.
Thanks, Laura. Yeah, it gets quite complicated sometimes, but as far as described, hopefully people will be open to being able to discuss how work is shown collectively, and arrange and agreements can be reached with everyone in the group without such incidents happening. Like you, Eleni, I've not heard of this being an issue previously, so I'm sorry that's something that you've had to deal with recently. I've got a question here again that's related to registrations. If I am exhibiting at home, do I apply as a venue or as an event? It sounds like there would be greater visibility applying as a venue.
Hi. So actually, not really. Your main header listing will be the one that everything's nested under. So if you're an artist, if you're the maker, I would get your own event or exhibition listing. They're kind of equivalent. It's just I'm trying to talk to venues and speak their language with that other option. Does that make sense? And that there's no expectation a venue pays, although we did try that one year, because I kind of felt you're bringing a lot of audience to venues, and that maybe they could chip in, and that wasn't all on the artist. But you know, that meant some businesses didn't feel able to take part. So we've made it as flexible as possible. Just drop us a line if you're trying to organise something a bit more involved, and we'll work it out together, like how best to show it. And also when we look at what you submit, we get a sense of how to organise it with you. So don't worry too much. I think the main thing is to get registered to start with.
And Kristin's got a similar sort of question. If I'm one artist looking to exhibit with a group of others, do I need to do my own registration, and how does the listing submission work then?
Yeah, so sort of trying to touch on earlier, you can really decide what works for you all, but if you want all of your own website and your Instagram, your phone number, your own image, then you would want your own main listing. But if you want to have a group show listing, you can do a collaborative one and have one link perhaps to a website with everything on. And then you can do one main listing as a group show, and then for £25 each, or just some of you could have your own mini listing underneath it, and that will then link again to your own personal image. So there's lots of ways of doing it. So you can have a main headline listing, you can have a group show listing, and little mini listings with artists underneath, or whatever suits you.
And I think, just to add to that, I think that it's really about how you want to make yourself visible, and each artist in that group show wants to make themselves visible, and how those artists want audiences to find them after the trail perhaps is completed. For instance, if anyone wants to follow up with queries about possibly commissioning a piece of work or buying a piece of work that you were showing, it's quite handy to have more than simply a name. I would argue in that instance that people are more likely to be able to find you again in the future.
The app will be live for at least a year, I think. So people can use it as a bit of a directory. I'm just going to say, in case anyone does want to go, we're 10 minutes over now. Just feel free, and I'm happy to stay and answer a couple more questions. But just thank you again for all coming along, in case you have to pop off.
And good luck with everybody's work getting ready. Is it worth mentioning anything about the one-to-ones at this point?
Yes, so I need to put more dates on because they've booked up actually. There's a couple of slots in February at the moment. So on the homepage of the website, you'll find a one-to-ones link, and you can book a half hour with myself, Tony, or Morag. Depending on what your query is or who's available, you might get one or any of us. And we'll try and answer some more sort of specific questions about things that you're trying to do.
And then there was a good question that came up from Poppy. Is it the same cost for schools to be in the programme?
Actually, so they can decide, again, if they've just got, if I say just, if they have organised an incredible feat of exhibiting their pupils' work on the fences, as well as all the million of other things teachers have to do, they might just want a simple daylight listing. But if they're having lots of, for £25, they can just be a festival supporter, cheap listing. But if they're doing more involved things, or they want to have a bit more of a feature or share a film or whatever, then I would say they should have a main exhibition listing. That's what I would recommend, really.
If you're trying to persuade a school to take part, you may want to consider suggesting that they approach their Friends of group or their PTA in order to cover the cost of the listing. Or make it, it's not a huge amount of money, but naturally, it may be that some of those more informal supporter groups might feel more able to make the payment quickly than go through the kind of red tape of a school making the payment.
I'll just say something about the schools thing. Isn't it some of the schools that, or just from my experience as a parent at some of the schools, having an artist coming into the school and doing workshops is one way. It's kind of not a burden on the school. So as an artist, because their work will then be displayed like as a collaboration type thing, so it can be kind of split. So it's not just, I don't know, there's ways of creatively working that into making it a fun experience and also a collaboration, so that it's not just something that's, I don't know, there's been so many kind of willow weaving works, no, so many things over the years. My mind's a bit jumbled, but you know, as an artist, I feel like I could propose a workshop and have some work and then display it in their playground edges, or you know, whatever, and I would get a benefit for having my work displayed, but also the help of the children or whatever. There's so many different creative ways of exploring who pays what and how.
Thanks, Farah. Yes, it's always worth, if that's something that you're really inspired by, making some direct connections with school settings. If you are interested in trying to introduce yourself as an artist educator to some of the local schools, you're welcome to contact myself or anyone in artillery, and we can make some initial connections for you or talk over some of the people that we find useful to talk to about that. I feel like we have exhausted the questions that have come up, which, and I'm just checking, and I think that Poppy and Sharon and Farah made some amazing suggestions, as did Tony with telling anecdotes of his preparations as well. So can I ask, how is this information going to be shared in available for people in the future that we've been talking about?
Yes. So at some point this week, we have got a very busy week. We will take a look at the recording and send that with the slides and any other little useful nuggets that we think. If, yeah, Tony's going to also work on frequently asked questions to go on the website. So he might find a minute to write some of those up and share those as well. And yeah, for the people that didn't make it, there were quite a few books as well. They'll all get that through the email. If you know of people, we'll share that with everyone.
Thanks ever so much.
So yeah, good night, everybody. I can't wait to hear from you all what you're doing, actually. We talk at you a lot at this point, but you know, feel free to just share little updates if you like. We might not have a lot of time to respond, but it really keeps us going. Or, you know, I'm working on this, or I'm in touch with this school, or whatever it is. Let us know. It's brilliant. Spur us on. And yeah, good night, and thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Farah, Poppy.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, cheerio.
Bye. Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Bye.
See you soon.
Bye.
Bye bye. Thank you.
Okay.
Great. Thank you so much, Tony. That was a real labour of love. I really appreciated you putting that all together. It's amazing.
And Farah, I love the way that you spoke. I love what you said. Maybe I was being too serious. Yeah.
No.
I wasn't what's the word, looking for the finger, tell me to shut up.
No, it was so beautifully to time, to the minute. Yeah, that it was. I felt like the whole presentation and the speakers had a lot of space. It didn't feel hurried, and everyone said what they wanted, and that was
Are we on our own now officially?
I'm just going to hit stop on the recording so I don't get all the
no.